Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to a podcast which is all about the Irish League, where a third of our top flight games may have been knocked out by the weather, but it was the offside flag which was to blame for chalking off what many thought was a faultless goal for Cliftonville on Friday evening. How could that have impacted the game? Well, for strikerless Larne, they didn't care. They heeded that warning, putting 2 past the Reds to secure the points in the second half. Linfield matched their touted title rivals by dismantling Carrick on Saturday. Dungannon did the same, sumptuously demolishing Crusaders. Meanwhile, Teelan was on target for the Ports to add to Loughgall's sinking feeling. No need to wrap up warm for this blisteringly hot weekly edition of Kicking Match. Joining me this week, a man who feels finally brave enough that he can take off his hat, coat, gloves, scarf, second coat after the weather we've had here in Northern Ireland after the past 7 days or so. It is fellow sports podcaster and football media man. Hello, Ally McCalmont.
Hi, Peter, by the way. Good to be back here again. Really cold week. We're finally getting around. Just today, it's got into double digits again. So, yeah, we're sort of feeling the ends of the toes and the fingers again.
This is the time of year where these things happen, unlike clockwork. It was another weekend that was severely disrupted by those old frozen pitches, and we saw some images actually by Desi Lockery up in Ballymena. That was one of the games that didn't go ahead. Unfortunately, grounds like Ballymena's are starting to have form with this. We all know the drama that Ballymena had. I think it was in the final season of David Jeffrey's tenure, where the ground at Ballymena was in really bad nick. Now that is a council facility, so that is who is responsible and looks after that. But you're starting to think of grounds now, and we can all imagine them. We expect when the weather's bad and it's cold and there's frost on the ground, or there's really, really heavy rain over the week, there's some grounds you're thinking it should be grand, and some where it isn't. And I know there's lots of people thinking that I'm going down the line of 3G for all. That's not what I'm saying. Look, this is in the same week where our politicians are asking questions about and are highlighting the fact that, yes, the rubber infill that is in all those artificial pitches is banned by the EU. And in a couple of years, was it maybe 6 years, that ain't going to be a thing, and we'll get into what that means for FIFA regulations far down the line. So 3G pitches perhaps isn't the answer across the board, but as a league and as a product, it is very frustrating for regular fans, as we all are listening to this podcast. But you imagine trying to attract people in, and it's not the only sport which is being impacted by this, where time and time again, match postponements is just such a regular occurrence during exactly the same periods every year.
Yeah, I think January, as you say, is renowned for it now, and we do get these sort of weeks where there's sort of 2-3 games off. And I think just with the league we've got, there are just 6 games every weekend. If we do get hit with even 1 or 2, it just curtails the whole programme, really. And on Saturday there, with a few games off, with the game on Friday night, only 3 games taking place on the Saturday itself, and it just disrupts the whole league itself, and just this season as well. Throw Larne into the mix with all their sort of backlog as well, and then I suppose you could look at it in a positive way. You could think about, sort of, I'm a big NFL man, as you know, and they play sort of Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and break it up. So we may get to a stage where we're getting Irish League games on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, a bit like the amateur leagues do towards the end of the season.
Like they got away with it, Larne, this week. I'm sure they were thinking, not one more time. Yeah. And look, there has been times, I remember that Dungannon pitch one time, the artificial one, where there was a frozen area. So it's not like, the 3G pitches are absolutely guaranteed. And look, it doesn't have to be frozen pitches, doesn't have to be too much rain. It could be an amber weather warning, which cancels a load of games. I think Larne, any more of these games, they're going to be playing games in the morning and games in the afternoon.
Double headers.
So I don't know what the answer is here, but you can hear the calls. You're a cricket man. Is there a reason why perhaps cricket plays their games not in January in the Western Hemisphere.
I've got to think about that one. Let me think about that. Yeah, it's bad enough. I used to play pre-season games at a place in Larne. As you talk about Larne in Sandy Bay, which is right on the coast, and it was the coldest game you ever played in your life, and you never caught a ball because you'd lose a couple of fingers. So, playing in those games was difficult. So, it's a fair weather game for sure. Peter, it's definitely a summer thing. And look, summer football's got their thing, and I know you've talked about it ad nauseum on the pod for the last couple of years. From my point of view, rather, obviously cricket's my number one sport, and if Irish League football was to change this summer, it would really impact on that. So it's not specifically a football thing, but just on other sports, it would definitely impact on the sport that I sort of play in the summer. But that's another argument. But yeah, look, losing games is a big thing, and I don't think there was any issue with Ballymena on Saturday in terms of calling it off. I know there was an issue a few weeks back about calling games off. I think that was a fairly certain one to go there on Saturday.
Go to the Kicking Match Twitter account and you will see the retweet of just how bad the pitch at Ballymena was on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But as we said, it was cold in Larne that time you were playing that cricket game. I'm sure it wasn't too much warmer on Friday night when they welcomed Cliftonville up there. They've been playing plenty of games. Could they bounce back off the back of that fairly poor loss against Limavady in the Cup? They did do that, but they didn't do it without controversy against the Reds. I feel your pain at Cliftonville. A lot of talk after the game. It ended 2-0 to Larne thanks to 2 second half goals from Dylan Sloan of all people. But should Cliftonville have gone into that half 1-0 to the good? There was a headed goal by Curran, which was chalked off by the referee, seemingly for offside. I'm yet to find one person that is able to pinpoint where and how that offside occurred.
Yeah, he when you saw the highlights, obviously it wasn't at the game itself, so can't really comment on the angle we're looking at. He does appear to come from well behind the defender to head it in. I mean, he's a good yard behind the defender when the camera pans around to him. So how he'd be able to physically be in front of the defender, come round the back of him, and then head the ball in? It did look like one of those ones where he couldn't possibly be offset, and you sort of, how did that happen? But it was given straight away, and it cost Cliftonville that goal, and that. We all talk about first goals in games and stuff, and it really cost Cliftonville because in the second half, then Larne managed to get the goals. And look, over the piece, maybe deserved, but those 2 goals are a little bit fortunate. I dispute the fact that Sloan got both, because obviously in my fantasy league head, we've got that as a Conlon own goal. So if you've got Dylan Sloan in your team, I'm afraid it'll be going down as 1 goal, I'm afraid. Conlon will pick up the own goal for that, I think. But yeah, the second one as well, just across, sort of put into an area, and Sloan happens to get on it at the far post and stick it away. And 2-0, maybe flattered Larne a little bit. And as I say, if that first goal had it gone the Reds' way, it might have been a completely different story given what we've witnessed Larne over most of the season.
Jimmy Gilton was furious about it after the game. So were many Reds fans. It's not been a great couple of weeks. Obviously, tragedy off the pitch, which they're dealing with. They got their win in the Irish Cup against lowly opposition in Banbridge Rangers, but in the league, it really hasn't been going well. Their last win, you have to go all the way back to late November, a 4-0 victory over Loughgall. Since then, they get a draw actually at Inver Park at the start of December, and actually they beat Armagh City in the League Cup. But they lose to Portadown, lose to Glentoran, lose to Crusaders on Boxing Day, and that's another tough opposition there. But when you look at the league table, they have teams like Dungannon and Portadown above them, and some of them have points and games on them. So tough on the pitch, tough off the pitch for Cliftonville, and it's a kind of a big January for them because they've lost Ronan Doherty, which we'll talk about as well. So they're looking light in areas of the pitch, and you know that Jim Gilton and co will get this right, but it's a bit of a tough patch point wise and form wise when they were second going into December and looking really bright.
just had a quick look back on most of the teams here before I came on today, and looking at Cliftonville, it's just gone pear-shaped because, as you say, they went through that little period, 5, 6 games in a row, winning games after game, and you thought, well, this is the real deal here, but it just seems to have gone pear-shaped. As you say, haven't won a league game since November, lost the last 4, scored only once in those games, and distinct danger now of dropping out of the top 6, and 28 goals I think in the season, and 9 of them have come against Loughgall. So that could be the Achilles heel here. Joe Gormley maybe hit that little purple patch in mid-season there when they were winning, but just not scoring the goals that they previously did. And I think it's well documented about losing the goals up top from last season. And maybe the slight crumb of comfort is they've got Loughgall coming up this Saturday. So a third of their goals have come against Loughgall this season. So maybe that will get them back on. But I think they need to calm the waters a wee bit on the stands. They're getting a wee bit panicky ahead of the Irish Cup now, and I think that's where they're going to be focusing now, is top 6 and Irish Cup now, I think, for the Reds.
They get a rematch of that fixture when they play them in the League Cup semi-final, and will likely to be in the rear view when you're listening to this. But they go against a Larne side who themselves haven't really been pulling up trees goal-wise within the league. And I was shocked when I looked at the team sheet that there was no Ryan, no Neil, and no Lusty. And even with all 3 of them out, Benji McGee still doesn't start. I know he's really not a man to lead the line by himself, but I'm surprised when all 3 of them are completely out of the squad that they're still looking to someone like, well, was it Sloan? Was it McKendry? Was it maybe Joe Thompson that was more of the striker in that formation? They're all attacking players. Well, less so Sloan, but obviously he got the goals. Particularly if they went in 1-0 down at half-time, it would be Larne trying to pick themselves up again. I don't think they would have walked out with the 3 points. Clearly they would have had enough goals across the 90 minutes if you included that goal, but momentum changes games, goals changes games, and I thought when Larne got that first goal, they kept up the pressure.
Totally agree with you there in terms of that first goal, as you mentioned. Cliftonville nicked that first goal, and we've seen this year about Larne, having to come back and struggling to actually come back from goals conceded in the first half. And as you mentioned there, Cliftonville winning that, going in at half time, and that first goal may have just caused a few problems for Larne. And yeah, look, looking up top, you've mentioned about the 3 guys that weren't playing. Sloan, you wouldn't stick him as a striker, number 9. And over the past 2 years, you probably could have hung your hat on Larne's strike force. Yes, they maybe had 3 or 4, but you could have said, right, certainly last year it would have been Bonus and Ryan up top, definitely on the team sheet every week, and they had done it. But you just struggle to go through the Larne team at the minute now and give the 1 to 11 that you know is going to be playing. And that's probably where the consistency that they had in the last 2 years has fallen to the wayside. Again, going back to my fantasy league head a little bit, you could guarantee a number of clean sheets in a row for Larne. They'd go 7-8 games without conceding. Meanwhile, up top, you could guarantee that Bonus and Ryan would pick up goals fairly regularly. So that consistency, the lack of clean sheets, the level of scoring compared to previous seasons just equates to a very difficult season so far. Having said that, I still think that they may be the only challengers to Linfield. Looking at the league table, we'll probably get to Linfield a little bit later, but if they were to go on that little run, they picked up 2 wins in a few days there, and if they were to go on a run and pick up 4 wins, maybe the next 5 in their games in hand, just maybe they may get back into it. But certainly the form this season hasn't been anywhere near consistent level of the previous 2.
They're very much in improve it mode. We used to count all those games that Larne were behind Linfield as, maybe they're 3 points, take away a win or 2 there. That clearly is not the Larne we saw at the early part of this season. And I think they need to prove to the rest of the league that they can maybe be counted on for those victories in the same way that they were. They're now only 5 games behind Linfield, but they are a whopping 19 points behind them. So they win all them, and it's only 4 points difference. Famous last words. But if you can't,
Yeah.
lacking in strikers while also struggling for goals is not particularly a great combination for them. But you talk about consistency. When you see Cosgrove and Ive start game after game, that was such a strength for them last term, and to have them in firing in the way that they are, or producing that work out wide, that's what they're going to rely on, and maybe they can lift the rest of the team, as well as that sturdy back line of Donnelly and Bulger and Want. I know they all haven't been healthy at the same time, it feels like, for long patches this season, but that's where they'll build it up. They have only conceded 13 goals in the league. Yes, it's only 18 games, but that reflects fairly favourably compared to Linfield, who have only conceded 16 across and only having played 5 more. So it's good. It's impressive. I think the first thing Larne needed to do was to get back into the top 6 based on points alone, despite the games that they haven't played, and they move up and they look, if they can go through the gears, and they have beat Cliftonville. They were able to survive that scare against Dungannon before Christmas. Yes, they weren't able to get across the line when it comes to Carrick on Boxing Day, but we will see what they can do. They aren't losing, and that's the important bit. But I do think they've got big games, and specifically that one against Linfield coming up down the line, and we will see how they handle this constant Tuesdays that we know are going to be thrown at them.
The phrase you used there is exactly correct. Prove it mode. I think that's exactly where they are right now. And coming up this next week, I know we're continually talking about their busy schedule, but this next week is a real prove it mode. They've got semi-final League Cup on the way against, again, as you say, Cliftonville, and Glentoran next Saturday in the league, and then Dungannon Shield final coming after that as well. So 3 more wins for Larne, and that might sort of, the naysayers might come on side a wee bit and sort of say maybe, but I think it's going to be difficult because they have no room, no wiggle room now. Can't lose any more points to Linfield, or it's going to be impossible. So yeah, prove it mode, I think, is a really good way of putting it.
A part of the problem for Larne's attack on Linfield's place at the summit is that Linfield look uncheckable. Yes, they don't get the job done this season when it comes to playing against Glentoran, but outside of that, they've rarely been shook. Yes, it's boring. Yes, it's methodical, and perhaps it isn't that flashy. But Linfield are able to shake off any real banana skin that comes in their way. And I thought Carrick going up to Windsor Park, knowing that Carrick were going to be this big body team that were going to play this flat back 5 and just smother the space, it could have proved difficult for Linfield, and so it has in previous times, and the first half didn't really go their way. And of course, when you need someone to unlock a big backline like Carrick, you need a bit of magic, and Cooper was the key, as he oftentimes is for Linfield. Gets that first goal, and that little bit of creak in the door that he wedged open, more goals came through. So it was a solid win for Linfield. 3 points, bagged, move on. And there's a goal for a man who's just signed a 2-year contract in Fitzpatrick. He's going to be sticking around in the blue shirt for a bit longer, it seems.
Yeah, look, he's taking a bit of tap from the blue man. It's got to be honest about it. He came in under a big money tag, and when you sign under those sort of circumstances, and signing for Linfield, you're expected to pretty much score a goal a game, really, and he hasn't done that. But certainly over the past few weeks, his work rate has been excellent. He's starting to pick up a few goals here and there, and as you say, nicked one on Saturday there. So maybe he's starting to win them over a little bit, and certainly playing on a team that's winning a league will certainly win them over if that transpires at the end of it. If they're winning leagues, then everybody should be happy. As you mentioned, they're kind of doing what's necessary right now, and they've got this stage now where that's really all they need to do. I've looked at the stats. We got 15 games maybe left, and really all Linfield need to do now, and I say all, but don't lose against the chasing pack, which would be your Glentoran, Larne, maybe Dungannon, and then just pick up your wins against the likes of Carrick, Glenavon, Loughgall, pick your wins up there, and then sort of get into this split, and you should be in a good position there. So they're doing what's necessary. I know you've heard probably time and time again over the past few months of people saying, "Oh, it's not the greatest Linfield team I've ever seen," etc. And it kind of got me thinking about the sort of Tottenham debate that's going on at the minute. Entertainment against wins and that sort of thing. And yes, they might be pragmatic, but I think that worst blues ever has been chucked about. And they may be pragmatic, but in April, they'll take substance over style, I think. And if they are breaking that Larne hoodoo for the past couple of years and picking up the title, I think my obvious guess would be that worst ever team noise might die away if they finish above everybody else and lift the Gibson Cup. I would say it'll die away a wee bit.
This is the real in the trenches part of the season for them, because there's too many games for every single matchup to feel like a huge 3 points. Meanwhile, they know they just need to keep ticking along, so they don't want to give any sort of advantage or give them any more rope to Larne in this situation. But we just know the absolute gauntlet they're going to have to go through. And Linfield, I've got here by doing the basics really, really well. And I feel like I constantly talk about maybe not being flashy or dominant, but oftentimes one-on-one, Linfield will control the ball, really harry the space, and the quality of Miller and Cooper out wide feels like a different level. Rarely do you see a team make it feel like a 50-50 affair outside of games against Glentoran. But Glentoran are showing up to be one of the better sides this season. So it's just ticking along, and I don't know if Linfield fans feel like they're one hand on it just yet, but they know they're kind of on the other side of the door. They're not a million miles away from thinking this is ours to lose. It clearly is, if we're being honest, by the table, because there's 50 games to be played, and there's points are points, and they've done exceedingly well. So,
well, I mean, this weekend could be sort of a perfect example of what you're talking about. They go to Portadown, but meanwhile, they're two of their closest teams. You would think they're sort of challenging them are going to play each other, so you can't both win. So Linfield, in effect, they're going to knock each other out at some stage and leave maybe one team to challenge Linfield, if any at all. So Linfield can sit back, do their business, and let all the others sort of do a wee bit of the Royal Rumble and throw each other out the ring every so often, and leave one maybe contender towards the split maybe. But by that stage, if Linfield keep doing what they're doing, then it may be done and dusted.
I said in December, when I previewed all the games that were going to happen that month, that ultimately I believed that Linfield could have sewn up the title. Now, the real cherry on top would have been the game against Larne, either not losing or winning against Larne. And because we haven't had that matchup, perhaps we haven't had the killer blow just yet. But they've only got one more matchup against Glentoran, and they're able to beat Dungannon away from home. So yes, a slip up could come from nowhere, and we're not getting into previews just yet. But Portadown away from home is one of those, let's say, amber games where, look, Larne lost. Linfield did draw at Shamrock Park earlier on this season. So these games where you'd think maybe Linfield could slip up are starting to dwindle. So step by step, bit by bit, they could get closer. Let's talk about Carrick, your Amber Army. We haven't got too much of a spotlight on them since the turnover in manager. It has been significant. Perhaps maybe in the table it doesn't really reflect the ascent that the team has had, but in points it definitely is there. What has changed with Stephen Baxter's taking of the helm? Because it feels like he saw what he had in his toolbox. He's fitted them in to try and get as many points as possible. Broadly, he's been very successful with that. January, new names come in. It feels as though that's to add bodies and to bring down the age of the squad, and it's not going to be a team completely in his image before the end of the season. but improvements have been made and they seem to happen quite quickly.
Yeah, I think from the get go, really, as soon as he came in, it changed the whole mentality. And I think the word you would use was structure. He brought a structure to the team straight away. And look, I'm gonna obviously the last time I was on with you was when Stuart King lost his job, and I sort of was quite sort of effusive about Stuart. I did think he was perfect man at the time, but anything I say now isn't in any way to denigrate what Stuart did at Carrick. But Stevens Baxter's come in, and structure is exactly that. He set about the back line, sorted it out. I mean, you could go across the names: McCulloch, Watson, Stewart, Surgener, Gordon, Crow, now Boyle. Big units at the back. I could pick any two from those and put them in there. I mean, Joe Crow's been a revelation going back into the back four there and playing alongside McCulloch, who, to be fair, started when he came in at the start of the season, struggled a little bit, but certainly he's now taken the captaincy now and has ran with it now and is really playing back to his best now. So that at the back, the 3-0 draws speak for themselves over the past few games. I mean, you were at the Newry game, I think, covering it for the radio, and it was a complete outlier. It was completely different to what's been happening in the league. And they haven't conceded goals since Stephen Baxter came in. I think I look back since that. I think Saturday was the first time they've conceded more than one goal in the league since he came in, and that speaks for itself. Now, that comes at a little bit of a cost in that they're not scoring the goals that they did maybe under Stuart King, but certainly they're going to pick up points. And looking at his record, he's had 12 games in the league, 3 wins, 6 draws, and 3 losses. And the 3 losses have been 2 to Linfield and 1 to the team sitting in second, Dungannon. So you extrapolate that out over a season, that would be around about 45 points in a 36 game season. I know it's 38, but 45 points would be well enough to keep you in the league for a start. And that was his remit when he came in. So he certainly brought structure to the team. And I would say, I know they've just been turned over at Linfield quite comfortably, but they can't beat anybody on their day now. They really can. I know that was sort of the thing with Stuart King, but you go into games, and I agree with you. I actually thought they'd go to Windsor Park on Saturday and give Linfield a really tough time. Certainly for 45 minutes, they would have put on the whiteboard, just have a nothing game here, and that's exactly what it was at half time, nothing game. I was just thinking, even when the first goal went in from Cooper, the game plan wouldn't have changed. Did it kept the same game plan up to 75 minutes and then tried to nick something? The big problem was that they conceded that second goal almost immediately. And once you're 2-0 down at Windsor, then it becomes almost impossible. But certainly structure, I would say, has been brought to the team. And now he's looking to ramp it up a little bit with the extra bodies coming in, mostly from Wexford.
Well, I thought Webb, I believe, in the cup game that I saw, while not having a huge stature, was able to find men in the box with ease and very, very quickly. The ball would come to him in centre midfield, and all of a sudden it would be ballooned into the air, but it would fall just perfectly for an attacker. Really dangerous, kind of awkward balls for defenders to take down. Very quick decision making, and that comes from having an excellent football brain. I don't think I was able to see too much of, I believe, Boyle, who was maybe a wing back that day. Perhaps I mixed those two up, but I mean, they look to have that zip in their play. It shows the experience of Baxter to come in to build from back to front and then move forward. And that is an excellent stat, that before that Linfield game that they had not conceded more than one goal in the league over such a long extended period of time. You've got 8 points above Loughgall, 2 games in hand. You don't want to get too ahead of yourselves, but you'll feel as though you should be able to keep that threat at bay. That would then suggest that your focus moving forward is still, while they're there and they're on good for themselves, is trying to claw back Glenavon or any sad soul, let's just say, to try and just avoid that 11th. And despite the fact that I think this Carrick Rangers team would be favoured over the likes of Limavady, Anna, Dundela, whoever, you don't want to be in that 2-legged fixture no matter how good you're going.
No, 100%. That's exactly it. Now, just looking at it, those points that you're picking up. I mean, obviously they've gone to Windsor on Saturday looking for a draw. There's no doubt about it. I mean, no issue with that at all. And as I say, if they were 0-0 after 75 minutes, that would have been on the whiteboard in the dressing room. Let's take a point from this game. But flip side of that is 6 draws out of 12 games. Is that going to be enough to get you out of 11th if Glenavon sort of do pick up as they go? We're still a few points behind there. So do they need to pick up wins instead of those draws? I mean, if we go back to a couple of the games away to Portadown, away to Glenavon, last minute equalisers there, 0-0 against Loughgall at home, 2 penalties missed. Transmit those into 3 wins, and I know it's some buts and maybes, but you aren't worrying about it then. You're looking up. But given the stature of the manager and what he's putting in place, you've mentioned those guys that have come in. I think he's looking for a little bit of pace on the wings. Maculaitis has been standout player for me this year in the amber shirt, but run very close by.
He was fabulous in the Irish Cup.
Yeah, he was excellent. And that's been his form. He's been. I think I spoke to you the last time I was on, and I was bemoaning the lack of wingers who actually take people on now, actually go at defenders. And that's a general football thing now. You don't really see that, but Maculaitis has been doing that for the last 6-7 weeks. He's actually getting the ball and running at his fullback and trying to create from there. So he's been a real standout for me this season. And he wants a bit more pace at fullback. He's got 2 young guys at the minute, Forsyth and Ben Buchanan-Ralston. Webb, as you say, came in on the wing as well. So throw those into the mix. Youth, speed, I think he's looking for that in the width, while being very, very solid up through the middle. And I think that's going to be the MO. But they have a big, I mentioned it earlier about Larne and the other teams, a big few weeks coming up here. Next 3 games. They get Ballymena on Saturday, Glenavon after that, and then a big tie in the Irish Cup away to Ballinamallard, which we may touch on the Irish Cup a bit, but it's opened up really for other teams, given the draw of a lot of Premiership clubs against each other. And then if you've got a good draw, you could end up, in a semi-final here very, very handily. And that's what Carrick, I think, will be certainly looking for.
If we're talking about standout results of the weekend, 5-1 Dungannon Swifts over Crusaders. I was quite bullish, it must be said, last week, and I did predict something like this. I was only bold enough to go 3-0, 3-1. 5-1 was not what I was going to go for, but Dungannon executed exactly what I thought they would do. They would blitzkrieg the Crues. They would get at that back line. They would use their energy early, and unfortunately for the Crues, they could not handle it. I have been waxing lyrical just about the vitality that this Dungannon Swift side has. They have players who will pass, move, battle. They're always got their heads up looking for that pass, taking on that man, and it's almost an unconventional shape. I don't know if it's a diamond, I don't know if it's a box midfield. It clearly is for me, or it's a 4-2-2-2. Whatever it is really, really working. I think they're a wee bit lucky when it comes to injuries. I know that's a kind of famous talking point for me, but they've been able to keep this side broadly healthy and going, and it adds in a few quite astute transfers. John McGovern has absolutely been one of them. He grabs 2 goals on the day. Perhaps they've grabbed another one in Brandon Birmingham. 2nd goal in 2 games. Welcome to the Irish League, Brandon.
Yeah, very much so. He looked as if he had just been born in a Dungannon shirt there. He just looked really at home there on Saturday. You mentioned injuries and how lucky they've been with injuries, but they actually, I think, did get one in the pre-game. I think, and sometimes that luck just goes with you, because I think Andy Mitchell was going to play up top for the Dungannon, and McGovern would have been on the bench, but he got a little bit of an injury and they brought McGovern in, and it really just worked for Macquarie's men, because as you say, he was just lightning in those first stages of the game, and they just blitzed. We mentioned the speed that Stephen Baxter's trying to get into the Carrick team. It's already there at Dungannon, the speed that they play at. And we mentioned surfaces as well, but it certainly suited Dungannon down to a T, the speed that they played at in that first half. They were sort of so quick for the Crues. And for me, if you were to give me a free ticket to watch any Irish League team, I think it probably would be the Swifts. I think they do sort of play a nice brand of football. But I was very interested to hear and read about Rodney McAree's post-match comments. I think they played at the Crues a couple of months back, and I think it was exactly the same as this game. They missed a hatful of chances that day and could have won 5-1 that day. Ended up a 2-2 draw. But at the game on Saturday, his post-match comments were, we were up in the first half, but in the second half, I wanted the team to get the ball forward as quickly as possible and not mess around at the back. And that was very interesting to hear, because we always talk about how they play the right way and whatever that means, but they kind of play from the back and build it through midfield. But he wanted to get it forward, and they nicked another goal straight away. It was a lovely goal from McGovern. If you watch that, that was a lovely bit of play. Little 1-2, and a nice ball in, and he finished it, and that was pretty much game over. But for the rest of the game, they were sensational. I was listening back to the radio, and the old mate Stuart King is again was co-coms, and he just couldn't believe how quick Dungannon were and how poor the Crusaders were on the day, and it could have been anything. And Dungannon were, I would say, worthy winners. They were more than that, and even a couple of goals from Thomas Galvin there as well. And he's in your fantasy team, is he, or have you taken him out?
I no, I think, to be honest, I wrongly predicted him to be a big main starter for Dungannon this year, and then he wasn't. But now he's still there, so broken clock and all that. In the Sunday Night Fantasy team. Also a part of all this weather related thing. Absolutely wrecked my other fantasy team, which will go unnamed in your company. But look, if you want to, when people say the Irish League is not as good as it used to be a few years ago, watch that Dungannon team across 90 minutes, and they look like they're playing football from another planet compared to what was being played 15 years ago. I mean, it's just different gravy, and they're a team that are, well, higher up mid-table. It's just great squad management. They're different level of fitness to be able to do that. You watch it, they take it out wide, the midfielders go wide, the wing backs are high, and it's these little triangles. Ball will come back straight to the middle. That goal you talked about with McGovern, the ball kind of comes from Leo Alves, then in the midfield, it goes straight to McGovern, he knocks it back and then goes for the run. It's constant energy, it's constant pulse, and Crusaders were exactly the type of team that are not built to deal with this. I need to kind of reflect on a couple of weeks ago me saying Crusaders losing is pointless in a development year if it's a team filled with players who are already who are not here to develop. They're a team that are at the back end of their career, and I think it's mainly due to injury, and we'll see if Offord has played his last game in the red and black of Crusaders, as just based on interviews and papers, talk of or concerns that he could be recalled. That would be a massive blow. But when you see more players like Josh O'Connor's just signed, he played. Sure, Nixon's been on and out of the side. He's in there. I know Lewis Barr's had a lot of more games, but Josh Williamson, young, fairly unseasoned at this level. Game time like that will be vital. So there's plenty of veteran dogs and Tuffy and Calgary and Laurie and all the rest of it that you still want the team, and not winning that's unfortunate, but they're perhaps giving these next generations a bit more game time. That is a really tough loss. I think they are starting to look like this is the side that this is the swap in the top six, bottom six. Look, so Larne's going to come in, take it, and now Crusaders look like the most likely to drop out. Dungannon look like the most likely to stay there. Let's look at the table. That's a big swing when it comes to points, because Dungannon's just around 39 points, and remember, at game 33, that's when it's locked in. So 39 points for the Swifts, 31 points for Crusaders. So that's a 8-point gap that Crusaders are now going to have to pull back in the space of these 9 games. So that alone is going to be tough for them. Well, of course, they can take out another team. Could be Cliftonville, Larne, Portadown, could all drop out, any of those ones. But it's starting to get to that point where it's tough. And look, really, if they finish 6th or 7th, yes, when it comes to pride and all, you'd want to be up there and then home advantage and qualifying for Europe, but we all knew what this is going to be for Crusaders, and this is the reality of transition. There is some not so bright days than what you're used to, and perhaps it's a bit of that consistency thing. They can dust themselves down and come back again. They've got cup games still to be played here, and we'll see how they go. They did get a win on Boxing Day, but one of those teams that are trying to build points remain in the top six while it goes along. Is Portadown. They were on a bit of a purple patch going into Christmas, second in the league, lose to Glenavon, lose to Glentoran at home, lose to Anna in the cup. Loughgall, that was something where the rut needed to stop. It did, despite the fact that Loughgall hitting the post about 30 million times based on the highlights. Portadown wasted their chances, so a game that could have easily been 6-4 or something like that. But the result here was the most important thing for Niall Curry's men. They go back to fourth, 37 points, 1-0, and we will see if they get going. You talk about signings in January being important. It's James Teelan, second goal in 2 games. In fact, since he's joined the club, he's been a part of every single goal. He set up one, scored the other 2. Looks like a shrewd investment.
Yeah, Teelan was on loan at Carrick last year, so I saw a good bit of him. And again, he's that winger we talked about, sharp. And what was well documented, he was Heatley in waiting basically at the Crues, but never really got that run in the game and in the team rather. And then, as I say, went to Carrick last year, saw a little bit of him. He sort of fleeted in and out of games, but had potential. It was one of those ones you looked at and said, "Yeah, this guy could be anything he wants." And he just sometimes a fit just comes in. Look, it's only a couple of games he's arrived at Portadown, but maybe just that new signing bounce and going into a new team. Got his goal in the loss at Anna, but then vital goal. It was a lovely goal. You mentioned Dungannon's goal on a lovely plastic pitch. It was fizzing about. It wasn't the same at Loughgall, but still Portadown were able to knock it about. A couple of 1-2s, nice back heel into Teelan's path, and he was able to stick it away. And that was the only goal of the game, which makes it even more important. But as you say, there were chances all over the place in that game. And I think looking at the 2 teams, that's just the way their season's gone. It could have gone either way. Portadown took their chance, missed a shocker with Ryan Macy round the keeper and couldn't finish it. But then, as I say, Loughgall missed a few as well. But, the Ports themselves, they're just picking up these wins. It's almost the perfect promotion campaign for me, 11 league wins already, plenty of clean sheets about. And maybe McCary was the flagship signing, bring him in as their goalkeeper. But I know you've been bantering me a little bit about the gift that was Lewis McKinnon at the start of the season. So he's come in at centre half, and you've been giving me a bit of stick about that.
Less so stick. I was more just, and we can maybe just talk about this very briefly. I've definitely been ringing the bell for Lewis McKinnon as one of the best centre back performers of the season, and the question has now come to a lot of people, which I asked you and a few other Carrick fans when I was there in the Irish Cup weekend, going, why did he not stick around here? What was it? And broadly, the kind of feeling was he wasn't performing like this when he was in an amber shirt.
Yeah, I think I said to you on that day when you sort of asked me about it, and I just do think it was a wee bit of expectation level coming from Rangers and coming in. It's sort of that immediate, you don't know the player, you haven't really watched him, and you just hear where he's coming from, and you think, right, okay, this guy's going to run this back four. He's going to come in here and just take over and be the leader of this back four, and it just never really came like that. I mean, he wasn't the worst performer in the world, but he certainly wasn't playing at the level that he is now at Portadown. And again, maybe just a little fit, as I say, maybe if he was playing in a Stephen Baxter back four, Stuart King's team was much more forward thinking and left a bit more space at the back, and maybe he was caught out a little bit, but he certainly picked up the mantle at Portadown this year in their back four, and the keeper has been a mainstay of their wins. They have picked up a few 1-0 wins along the way, and those are vital. But yeah, look, good luck to him. He's gone to a team now, and it's really, really working out for him.
Yeah, I think every fan here in the Irish League has the player that wasn't pulling up trees in your shirt, moved on, and all of a sudden became a world beater. So we all have that what could have been players, and things come good, and we all hit good bits of form. for Portadown. I saw a stat there. McCarry got the most clean sheets in the league with 9 off the back of Saturday. I think that might be helpful. The fact that Linfield maybe changed their keeper mid-season,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
hey ho, let's not let a good fact get in the way of another statistic. But let's talk about Loughgall. I feel like this is the thing I've said every week at this point in the podcast. They go for it. They, on this occasion, hit the bar, hit the post, come close, are a bit open at the back. Portadown don't punish them on this occasion. It felt based on the highlights. It's really starting to run out. You know, if we're talking about Crues looking tough, 8 points away from Dungannon Swifts, that's the gap between Loughgall and Carrick, and you guys have games in hand.
Yeah, we do. And again, just looking at the gap, it's 8 points. They've won 3 games out of the 24 that they've played so far, and they've got to win 3 out of 14 just to get level with Carrick. So 3 from 14 when you've only won 3 out of 24, and that's assuming that Carrick don't pick up another point towards the end of the season. So it's looking bleak. And I feel for them a little bit because that they're a good side at times. You watch them at times and you think, yeah, you've got a wee bit about you, but just at the back, they just haven't really found that mojo at the back. 57 goals already this year in 24 games. And, when you're going on the pitch thinking we need 2 here to get a draw, most likely it's got to be deflating when you're starting the game thinking you need 2 for a draw.
Between now and the end of January, Loughgall play Cliftonville away, and then they play Glentoran at home. They did get a draw against Glentoran at home, which I was there, so maybe that's somewhat in their sight for maybe getting points, but that's them between now and the end of the month. Meanwhile, Carrick and Glenavon play before the end of the month. We could be sitting here early February, maybe before Valentine's Day, where we can pretty much stick a fork in them because they could be done. If we're saying Linfield are edging towards it, Loughgall look to be edging towards that as well, which is unfortunate, but I think it's actually based on the fact that Glenavon and Carrick Rangers have just done so well to turn things around. And we've seen with teams, you win a couple of games, you rise up the league, but Loughgall look very, very far away from that, and their fixtures are not looking great. Let's touch on some of the news. We didn't reflect there in the game between Crusaders and Dungannon that there was a bit of Irish history, and that Louise Thompson was the first female referee to take charge of a game at that level. I think I'd kind of just want to say congrats, but also, hopefully, look, it's obviously the first time, so it is a big deal, but we're hopefully in a situation where that is as notable as a left-handed or a brown-haired referee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
It's great.
I think that's
Let's
a really
celebrate
good point.
it. But
yeah, I think that's a really good point that, there wasn't too much made of it. It is a great thing. But the fact that it wasn't too much, just treat it as normal. It was just almost a normal thing, and get to that stage then I think we're good to go. And it was a lovely game for the two, because there weren't really too many big moments. Dungannon got ahead early, and that was good. And it's good to see. It's great to see. But if we can get it to a normal level and it's just a run of the mill thing, and I think the point of it is that it shows that it can be done. I think that's more why we would highlight it, to say, look, if you start at the bottom, this is where you can go. No matter who you are, you can reach that level. And well done to her. But hopefully she gets a lot more games, and as I say, it becomes the norm.
100%. Trendsetter will always be known as the first. They've put in the work like all the referees do, and congratulations to them for their first big gig. I'm sure there'll be plenty of nightmare games on cold nights in their future, as there will be for every referee up and down across the league. Coleraine didn't have a game this weekend, but they continue to dominate our back pages. I pointed towards the fact that it looked as though Ronan Doherty could be Coleraine bound. Reports were that he hadn't, in fact, signed a pre-contract, and Cliftonville decided, you know what, if you pay us the right amount of dough, you can have him now, Coleraine, and that came to fruition. Coleraine have hyped him up as one of the best midfielders in the league, and I agree, exactly the type of creativity I think the Bandsiders could do with.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're making all the headlines now at the minute. Coleraine. I think the last time I was on a few months back, I sort of mentioned that I actually worried more about Coleraine than I did Crusaders at the time. I just watched Coleraine at Taylor's Avenue, and there's an article in the Sunday Life this week from Dean Shields talking about that particular game when the old Muck and Nettles comment, and he was sort of joking about it now. And I think he's in a place where he can joke about it now, because certainly Coleraine looked to be on a, if not on the pitch, certainly off the pitch, they seem to be in a better position. And they're scoring goals again now, and a wee bit of creativity and just the feel good factor that seems to be around the club, just off the field, regardless of it on the field. Then it does seem to bring a bit to that. And what's this space? It's kind of got to the stage now where I haven't got a clue what's going to happen. Anything really could happen at Coleraine, given the information we're getting at the minute with Cooper, Ives, and already Doherty.
Yeah, that's three big signings. I think the thing with Doherty is that he's coming in at, what is it, 27, 28. So, he's got some really good years ahead of him. As do all of them, to be fair, if you're including the reports that Ives will also be lining up in blue and white come next season. The player will be playing in blue and white this season. Paddy Burns returns to the league. Big, bulking defender. Brother of Mr. Bobby Burns. So he's back in the league. We'll see how he fits into that side. I don't know if he'll go straight into that back line, maybe what side he will play. He was very much a bit of a utility man when he was playing for the Reds. So we'll see what Dean Shields see him as, where he fits across there. But I think I said it last time out, there's really no player, and I've seen there's chat of maybe Joe Thompson being someone that is drawing interest not only from Coleraine but also Glentoran. There's really no name that's off limits, you would say, where you would be going, well, there's no way Coleraine could get them or go for them. That's actually what it seems so out of whack and so outbalanced by going, why are you getting Cooper when you've got so many other holes in your team? Surely this is the frosting on the cake, but actually it's kind of the reverse. It's the lighthouse for all these other stars going, we've got Cooper, yeah, why don't you join in? So it
I was just thinking exactly what I was thinking, Peter. I was just thinking that it's a marquee signing. It's not signed as yet, but the pre-contract deal, getting what arguably, if you were being neutral, most people would say is the best player in the league from the most established team in the league. We can take him. We can take anybody. We can now get anybody we really want. So I think you're right. They've broken the ceiling with that. And now other players might be looking at it thinking, well, if Joel Cooper can go there, why can't I? And they've decided to go with that big marquee name to start with, rather than building at a low level and maybe build up to that at the end. I think you're right. Let's get the marquee one in, and then the rest will probably follow a wee bit like that.
Marquee names that will not be playing in blue and white next season, and these are really, really interesting transfers. In Irish League transfers, though, they are Northern Ireland internationals, joining Shane Ferguson in Derry City next season, which is only weeks away. The Gavin White saga is over. Ain't Ballymena, ain't anybody in the Irish League. It's Derry City. And Liam Boyce as well. Those are fascinating signings. I'm really interested to see how they will fare out. Obviously, Gavin White hasn't played football for months, since last season. Liam Boyce, aged 33, hasn't been a dominant force in the Hearts side for a variety of reasons, but I'm sure will offer a lot at the League of Ireland level. Derry City grab them. Big project that Tiernan Lynch is the captain of at the minute. Really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, that really is. And, it's excitement, coming into it's obviously their pre-season, and coming into that league campaign, you're always looking about who's coming in. Well, I mean, Derry City have really opened that up. And like sometimes the Irish League, obviously we had the Larne Shamrock game, which sort of opened up a little bit of sort of interest between the two leagues and whatnot, but maybe there's not as much interest in the League of Ireland as we like to think. But certainly Derry City signing these players will just ramp that up a little bit. Northern Ireland International's going there, and sort of maybe a lot more spotlight on Derry City, and having a look and see how they get on. We've seen a few players coming back from across the water to the Irish League and maybe not perform at the level, but certainly getting these three guys in, it'll ramp up the interest for sure in Derry City and how they get on.
Does just highlight the drawing power that the League of Ireland has over the Irish League. Derry, a massive club, absolutely, but they're not a big Belfast club, and I think Derry has grown so much from the fact that they have been playing All Ireland football, and I think that for some fans, I've seen talk about how what could be for some of the bigger sides in this league if they had the spending power of a Derry City, and could they be able to attract these names. At the minute, it looks as though they are not. We'll look ahead to this weekend's fixtures, where, fingers crossed, we're all going well. Friday night game, more streams for you to enjoy. And you'll be able to watch this team full 90 minutes. Get your stat book out, pretend that you're all Carragher or whoever, and go, oh, look at the triangles, look at the move, look at the third man runs. Because Dungannon Swifts against Glenavon. Yep, wake that Glenavon side out of their slumber. Haven't played football in 85 weeks. But they travel down to Stagmore Park. Will they be rusty or ready, Mr. McCalmont?
Yeah, we've set this up big. We've talked Dungannon up really well there, and they're on TV on Friday night. So as you say, everybody be tuning in thinking, listen to those two guys during the week saying this Dungannon team was really good, and look at the stadiums. But yeah, look, from what we've seen over Dungannon for the rest of the season so far, they've been excellent at home. They've got a few games coming up at home. I think 3 of their next 4 are at home. They're sitting in second position at the minute, just off the back of as we've talked about, a really top class performance away to Crusaders. But look, Glenavon, he's had a bit of time on the training pitch, albeit maybe a bit icy, but new managers come in, and again, I harken back to the last time I was on, there was a talk about Carrick Rangers maybe bringing either Baxter. I kind of knew it was Baxter, but the other guy that was in the stands that day was Paddy McLaughlin, and it was a talk of styles over substance again. Would you bring in the tried and tested and sort of safe hands of Baxter, or go for McLaughlin? As it turns out now, the two of them are going to be vying at the bottom now. McLaughlin's at Glenavon and Baxter's at Carrick, and those two are sitting 10th and 11th. So in a way, we've got that clash of styles there maybe. But Glenavon have picked up a couple of wins recently, and that's just sort of got that gap. I think they're fairly safe now from 12th for sure. But they will be looking up the table now a little bit with McLaughlin in. And as I say, just those few weeks where they haven't been playing might give them that little bit of time on the training pitch, just to hone those things that McLaughlin really wants. But it will be tough against Dungannon rather, and it should be a good game. But I'd really be tuning in on Friday for that one.
I actually really like this game because I've seen the improvement under Paddy McLaughlin for Glenavon. I had them down as a team that couldn't score and relegation favourites in my eyes. And I think that proved very much to be the case until McLaughlin came in. And it's pretty much the same tool set that was there previously, but he's been able to get so much more out of it. Surprisingly, I think this is going to be a 1-1 draw. In fact, I'm going to go further. I think there's going to be a red card apiece. I think it might get a little bit testy down there. I think Dylan and Peter Campbell are going to have a scrap. And you see if it's 1-1 and both those players get sent off, I want a parade. Or at least like a double.
Into it now.
Yeah, 100%. I think this will be a bit of a battle in midfield. I think Glenavon will really be up for this, and of course Dungannon will want every point they possibly can to solidify automatics. They're in the driver's seat, automatic European qualifications. So big game, both decent at the back, but have their little weaknesses, and I think it'll be a real battle game, 1-1, and probably maybe Glenavon will take that for sure. But that's the way I see it. Similar for you, or have you got a winner?
Yeah, I'm going for the Swifts. Just as I say, just their home advantage there. I think they could nick it there, I think maybe. But I agree. It could be a tighter game than maybe a few weeks ago for sure, we'd have been saying. But I think think the Swifts will just push in it. A really good point that people maybe forget about second place. It's a big thing, second place. And if you were to get into second place, that would be an enormous thing for Dungannon Swifts.
It's third automatic as well, it's all based on Irish Cup, isn't it? So
goes in Irish Cup, yeah.
Second's automatic. So second or third is kind of what you're after. So yeah, I'll tell you, a team who isn't going to steal away third's automatic European qualification is Ballymena, because they're out of the Irish Cup and they still have not been able to shake off that bad juju. I think Jim Irvin's under pressure. He has been backed and he hasn't been able to. Well, I tell a lie. Of course, there was the League Cup game against Glentoran, which didn't go their way either. So, can Jim Irvin, going back to a bit of an old stomping ground of his in Carrick Rangers, get this Ballymena side back on track? I don't know if he can.
Yeah, this is one of the better performances at Taylor's Avenue this year from the away side. Early on in the season, they came down to Carrick, and obviously Carrick were in a bit of a different state at that time. They were in a real bad bit of form. Ballymena were the complete opposite, and they won that game 4-1, a couple of goals at the end. But I don't see that happening again. I think Ballymena had struggled a little bit for form, discipline issues. If I remember rightly, back in that game, I think there were 14 yellow cards in that game. Carrick Ballymena the last time, something like that. It was an enormous amount of yellow cards.
Look at my non-surprised face.
Yeah, and Ballymena really struggled with that all season. Well documented about the double red cards they've had, and that could be something that they've really got to work out here. And Carrick aren't afraid of a yellow card as well themselves. So if you're down the local bookmaking establishments, you can get a bet on cards for that game. I wouldn't put you off that. But I think Carrick, just at the minute, I think they're solid at the back, as we talked about earlier. And I think they've got a couple of guys coming in now. It'd be interesting to see the team line up for Carrick. Does he bring in a few of the new guys, or does he stick with the tried and tested? But big guy for Carrick for me in that game is Shannon Clucas. I think he's starting to play a little bit more box to box. And I think maybe he could nick a goal there for Carrick, and they could nick this one.
He is, and he's a decent presence when he gets into the box as well. He's grabbed a couple of goals. Obviously, the last time I saw him do that was in that Irish Cup game against Newry. I kind of think this could be a game short on chances, so I'm kind of, based on returning to form, and thinking that it's probably going to be 0-0, maybe 1-1, but I think it will be, if any team are going to edge it, it'll be on a 1 goal difference. So I'm just going to split the difference and go 0-0.
Well, hopefully not, because I'll be there. Unfortunately, I don't want to be watching another 0-0.
Cliftonville, we talked about it, have a get-right game against Loughgall. Despite their woes, you got it back. For Cliftonville's woes, the kind of the champagne woes in the views of Loughgall fans. I don't like this at all for the Villagers. I'm going to say just a very run-of-the-mill 2-0 for Cliftonville. I think they'll turn the screw. Anything bar a win for Cliftonville will be a surprise.
Very much so. I think routine win would be the call, but I think you're looking about how many. Cliftonville, as I say, might be a bad thing for Loughgall. Cliftonville are in bad form in a way, because this is their get right game, as you say, and if they go 2-0 up early when they were in good form, they might down tools. But I think they really need to get a good performance in front of their own fans and get a little bit of those fans back on side a little bit ahead of the fixtures coming up. So I think if they do go 2-3-0 up, they might keep pushing. And they'd be looking to score a few goals in this game and try and get the fans back on side, as I say. So routine home win for me.
A funny fixture this, Coleraine against Crusaders. Both teams sitting outside of the top 6. Coleraine have played 22 games. Crusaders have played 24. 1 point is the difference. Crusaders 1 point ahead. You would think, based on recent form, I would say Coleraine home will do one against the Crues, but I think the lack of game time for Coleraine is not going to go in their favour. I think the Crues will want to try and bounce back. They'll do it. They might score early. Coleraine will have to try and battle back. even without Alford, I think Crues are going to edge this 2-1 away win for the North Belfast side.
Big call. That the Crues have got. We mentioned about their poor run of form at the minute. They've 4 big games coming up, 3 of them away from home. They've got Coleraine, as you mentioned, then Linfield and Larne away, with Portadown in between that, and they've got to pick up points now just to sort of stem this tide a wee bit. I take your point about Coleraine not getting many games at the minute, but just watching the Crues getting dismantled there on Saturday, that back line worries me a little bit for the Crues, and I think Nippy, Campbell, Shevlin might nick a few for Coleraine. I could see a maybe 2-0 win for Coleraine here.
All going well, I think that should be my prediction league game of the weekend. Yeah, 2-1 Crues. I think they'll get the early goal, and that will really set them on their way. But look, I won't be surprised if Coleraine get their goals, because they have plenty of people to fire them in the back of the net. Glens Larne. Feels odd this game's being played during daylight. It's like two. It seems like it's why is it not on TV on a Tuesday night? I feel like I've seen this game 30 million times streamed during the dark of night. But no, Larne go to the Oval, where Glentoran have a decent record recently, and I think actually, I can see either one edge it. I'm like ping-ponging between the two of them to make it 2-1 either way, and I'm gonna be boring and say 1-1. I think they'll both be battling till the end, but it'll be 1-1 is how I'll finish.
Yeah, I think your little pause there says everything, that it's difficult to know which way this is going to go here. I think those games you've mentioned on the telly, I think there've been a couple of real stinkers.
They have
between these two on the telly. There's been a couple of bad ones, so maybe that's why they haven't picked it again. Just to say, you can have that 3:00 on a Saturday there. So we might get a 4 each then if it's not on the telly.
I would love it.
Wouldn't it be great? First time you haven't picked this game, and it's an absolute barnstormer.
It's the sunlight that lets the defenses breathe and just split them.
Yeah. But maybe as we mentioned earlier, this could be the game that Linfield fans are keeping an eye on, because if it is a draw, it would be really perfect for the Blues, especially as the game we're going to come to if they were to win. So, yeah, I think it might be a decent game. I might go 2 each here for the Glens and Larne, which isn't great for either of them.
No. I kind of like maybe the Glens sneaking it, but it's hard to count out Larne just at this very moment. But that's a tough test away at the Oval. Ports Linfield, I do think this would have been a trickier test if it wasn't for the fact that Portadown have slightly wilted. Maybe getting back to home comforts will help that ever so slightly. Getting McCary with fit McKinnon and Alton Top and everything else. We all know Portadown's game against these top sides. They'll wait back and try and catch them on the counter. For the Ports, they will need to try and keep this 0-0 at half time and see what they can get. But I kind of think Linfield will score early, and that will wreck their plan, and they'll go forward. I'm going to go 3-1, maybe even 3-0 Linfield. It should be a tougher test, but that if they get an early goal in the first half, it will completely unsettle the Ports.
I sort of nostalgia-wise, I love this game. This was the game I always sort of looked forward to when I was growing up. Portadown Linfield was always even just the colours of the kits, red against blue and all that sort of stuff. I just loved it. Portadown Linfield, some great games. The game earlier in the season, as you sort of alluded to earlier, was a belter. I think May's got a last-minute equaliser for the Ports, and they've done so well this season to be where they are, and it just that cup defeat maybe has just burst the balloon a little bit in terms of where they're at. They've still got plenty to play for in terms of a top 6. They can still achieve that. But just with the Linfield doing what they've got to do, I could see them just nicking this. Maybe I think it'll be a bit tighter than you think, maybe. But I'll go for the Blues just to get a 1-0 win with Cooper breaking the deadlock yet again.
Yeah, that swagger where they were beating Cliftonville and Crues at home has slightly been diminished. That balloon's been popped, and I think they need that kind of confidence going into Linfield coming to town. So could be maybe a draw there, but I think if Linfield play up to their powers, they should have enough to squeeze by this Portadown side. And that's our lot for this week, Mr. McCalmont. Another one where my voice is absolutely up the left. Had to forego my sports sound duties this weekend. Thus was that old flu. I mean, the proper flu. I'll have none of this this demeaning man flu nonsense. I was a very ill, shivery man. Little blister pack tablets were my friend this weekend. So I've been a sad man, but it's been brightened up knowing that I could sit here and chat to yourself. You've kept safe broadly throughout this virus season that we're all going through.
I've managed to stay a little bit away from the lurgy. My wife actually had a little bit of it over the past few days, but I've managed to avoid it. But you can pencil me in for Friday this week, I think. Probably, let's say a 24-hour just being there, just Friday afternoon. I think, oh yeah, but here's hoping.
You, the TV, chicken soup, and Dungannon against Glenavon.
Dungannon against Glenavon on a Friday night. That's exactly it. So yeah, that's it. That's it. Nailed on.
And here it's January, so we may as well plug this Sunday Life fancy football game, which you're a part of. I'm doing quite well this year, or I was for a bit. Was I 11th at the highest like a couple of weeks ago, or have I fallen off massively?
Yeah, you were in the. Yeah, no. You're still in the top 40 and getting a mention every week in the paper as a shameless plug. So you're doing quite well, as I say, and it's been good this year because, as I say, with these, don't mean to demean it, but the sort of different teams at the top of the league, different players have come to the fore over the past few years. It's basically had a Larne defender or Lee Bonus or Andy Ryan, but now you're picking up lots of clean sheets, as we've mentioned, from Portadown, for example, which. Few people would have gone for. You haven't McKinnon as we talked about, but most people would have maybe gone for a Mays or
he was cheap. That's why McKinnon's in the team. He was cheap.
He was cheap, but that's what you got to do. That's why I love the game, and and you got to pick up these things, a little bit of insider knowledge. If you know these guys are coming and they're a little bit cheaper, can you pick up those little gems? And yeah, it's just been doing it for a few years now. I really just I love the involvement it gives me in every team in the league and knowing the players a little bit more than maybe the run-of-the-mill sort of thing. I really enjoy that.
It's very fun, and I feel as though I've been on the Dylan train earlier than most because I remember he would take penalties for Warm Point, and he would actually be quite a high-scoring player for Warm Point, so I always kind of overhyped him as, great signing for Warm Point, nice little midfielder. Definitely thought he was way younger than he actually was. He's still like in the late 20s, I think, or maybe he's just turned 30.
Yeah, you mentioned about the penalties. We actually brought in a new rule, this year, just to jazz it up a little bit. We try and bring a rule in every so often, and we awarded 2 extra points for a headed goal and 2 extra points for a direct free kick. So it meant then that people had to look, not just the penalty people. It was people that take free kicks. And
Tomas Galvin had a glorious
Tomas Galvin gets you an extra 2 points for the gap. And actually, a really interesting and a really good one was the goal that the goalkeeper for Glentoran scored.
Oh yes, that's exactly what I thought. When that went in, I'm like, somebody's just scored like a bucket load of goals.
Yeah, so he gets an extra 10 points for the goal.
Incredible.
But he actually gets an extra 2 as well because it was a direct free kick.
That has to be one of the highest scoring goals ever.
Yeah. 12 points for 1 goal.
Incredible. No, you might be, some of the players have done well for me. Got Glennie, got McKinnon. Galvin wasn't that, but Offord was one. Now, Offord might be fording away or maybe gone, but that's not a problem because it's January and I can make a change. Is that correct if people are playing the game?
You can make a change. There will be probably a couple of changes given. We always kind of tweak the rules as we go along, but we kind of wait until the real, in inverted commas, transfer window shuts. Because if we bring people in now and we open up the window now, then transfers happen and players play because we have that 1 player per club rule. Which we really like because it gets every club involved. So we kind of wait until the end of January and then we open up our own transfer window with the new. And obviously this year there'll be quite a few new managers for your assistant. You'll be able to bring in Baxter, McLaughlin, Not sure at Larne whether it's Havering or Rooney. You pardon that little little pun there, but yeah, it'll be Gary Havering, obviously. But you can bring a new assistant manager in once we open up our own window, which will probably be in and around the first week in February. So you can bring a few changes, and they can make a difference if you're in a shape, which you clearly are. It could make a difference.
There you go. There you go. I'll be winning across the board. Ally, thank you so much for joining me. Tremendous week, as it always is every time you pop in. All the best, and I'll chat to you very soon.
Yeah, we'll do, Peter. Thanks very much, and we'll catch up soon.
Nice one. Oh dear, dear, dear. Another one where old Sicky Pete sticks his headphones on and turns up the microphone, and away we go. I think it was a close call. I almost was sending a little message to the boys that are around the grounds going, look after this one for me, guys. I don't think I can do it, but I powered through to make another week of podcasting happen. I tell you what, had the fear, because I was thinking if I had this same affliction come March, maybe let's say around the 21st, what would I do? Because of course I would have to power through that, wouldn't I? Because that is the night of Kicking Match Live, the very first live podcast that I'm going to put together. It's a own unique live show, and guess what? This week I think I've locked in my first new guest. I'll be talking about that over the next few weeks, no doubt. But if you want to be there, you can get your ticket right now. Go on to the Kicking Match social media pages. It's at Kicking Match on Instagram, Facebook, and or Twitter, and you can get your ticket on Eventbrite. Thank you very much for listening this week. Until next time, I will see you very, very soon in podcast form. Bye bye.